Hi, thanks for tuning in. My name is Samantha. I'm in Denmark. I am a leadership coach that helps the wives and moms stop fighting with their husband and kids. And one of the hardest things I found in my own life and journey and in my clients, those of them who are like me, who don't have a problem saying what we're feeling and thinking, the hardest, biggest challenge is to manage our mouth, right? So I give sessions and classes and training on how to do this particular thing, manage your mouth. And one of the trainings is called Less is More, because it is the most effective way to stop fighting with your husband and communicate better, and also with your children, is just to say less. And the reason is, and it's interesting, if you look at the male and the female brain, we have language and speech centers on both sides of our brain, and they're way, way bigger. So, not to say that we're smarter, we just have different, they have spatial on one half of their brain, right? So the male and female brain are different. This, of course, is statistically, you can be on either side of that table, but probability-wise. So, long story short, I find that women who are like me, we say what we think, right? So I call it thinking out loud, and now my husband calls it not thinking, which I can understand. So what happens is we're constantly thinking and we're constantly talking and saying what we think. So we just talk way more words. And so our husband can't take any more words inside into his brain because he's not saying so many words. So if you think of it just like a bowl and you put things in, he's got to get more words out before he can take more words in. So stopping speaking is the most powerful thing. So here's why it's so, hold on, put my cup down. Why it's so difficult and why it's so interesting. So what happens when we manage our mouth is that we have to start managing our mind and our emotions. And our mind is the sum of the stories that we tell ourselves, the total sum of all the stories that we have is what dictates our mind, right? So I look at that as two things, our beliefs and our attitudes. And attitudes are way easier to change than belief systems. But our belief, if we don't do anything, will dictate our attitudes towards things. And attitudes, I see it as the thing that filters emotions and information that comes to us is filtered through our attitudes / beliefs. And then that becomes what we respond and react to. And then the emotions turn into longer term feelings. But long story short, when you adjust your attitude, you ask yourself, what is the story that I'm telling myself? Oh, I'm telling myself my husband is slow or he's lazy, he's not putting the kids' shoes in the right place. What story is going on inside your head? Noticing that story and asking yourself, is that serving me? Or just choosing to tell a different story. So I look at attitude like an eye that you can point in different directions. You can look at this or you can look at that. And that's your attitude toward things. And hold on. Here we go. So in my training with both moms and wives, the first thing to do, day number 1 with the wives is called Attitude is Everything. And I get my clients to write down 10 things they like about their husband and 10 things they're happy about in their relationship. And with the moms is 10 reasons why you're a great mom, right? So you adjust your attitude by just changing the story or looking at something different. It's not so much a story as how you view yourself, like your attitude towards yourself and your attitude towards your husband. So you can change these things and look at different things. Like you can look at all the things he's doing wrong or all the things he's doing right. And we all have that choice in life, right? The glass is half empty or it's half full. And I'm actually a trained lawyer of profession, and I always use this analogy that as a lawyer, you find a case, you pick a case, and then you argue for it, right? So if your story is, sometimes it even becomes a story that we married a loser, right? And that's a very bad story to tell. So you decide what story you tell. You decide what case, what truth are you bringing up, and then choosing to share and to look at. So we can argue, you can say, my husband needs to do this and that and the other. The kids need to get to school at 8 o'clock so they can't go to school. You can't go to bed so late at night. And there are all these truths that you can choose to take and look at and bring up and argue for. But it is your choice what truth you look at and what truth you bring up and argue and bring to court, so to speak. You choose your case first, and your case is your just stories that go on repeating things that you choose to tell. So you choose to tell yourself, oh, it's so annoying that he doesn't pick up his own socks every time you're picking up Tom's sock, right? The Tom and Mary case, if you've heard me talk about that, you will. So Mary goes and picks up Tom's socks, and she's pretty proud of herself because the first 5 times she was just smiling and it's okay, didn't really matter. And then she had to really constrain herself to not be annoyed. And then the 10th times, her insecurity for various reasons has gone through the roof, and that becomes a symbol that they cannot live together because of these socks. And she tells him that. Now is the first time she mentions it to Tom, that please pick up your socks. And Tom has not thought about his socks. All through the conversations and things that Mary had in her head and how she was annoyed and da-da-da-da-da-da. He's never thought about the socks until she brings it up. But now her emotional state, which is what she communicates to him, is what she's saying, but it's more also what she's feeling. So that's what he picks up. So he feels under attack now. That she just, in her story, she's politely asking him to pick up the socks. And she may be even smiling, but that's not how she's feeling. She's pretty annoyed at this point because her insecurities triggered. Like, she just feels that how can they live together and be happy if he doesn't pick up his socks at this point? So for whatever reason, she's communicating some words, but also some feelings. And he picks that up as an attack because if she's like me, she doesn't really, it's easy to sense that she's pissed, right? And so he's not hearing so much about the socks as he's hearing, you did something wrong. And men, and this is really crucial. I'm going a bit all over the place. I just want to talk about how to manage your mouth. Let me sum up with that. But this is an important part to remember, is that men have been told that they're doing something wrong their entire lives through the school system. And we talked about the brain briefly in the beginning. The male and the female brain are very different. Now, the male brain in a boredom state is all blue, baseline. He can breathe and ingest food, right? The female brain in the same state is very active, and she's writing. I don't know if you noticed, but I write notes to not fall asleep when I'm in class, right? So the male and female brain are very different, and the whole school system is developed around the female brain, not the spatial part. Like, if you want to get a boy's attention or a man, you toss something to them and he catches it, and then his brain starts to notice things, right? So that's the way to get his attention. And so my point is that men have been, or were boys, they're different, right? So it's not like we on purpose say they're doing something wrong. They've been in a school system that's not organized around how their natural beings are. So they felt wrong, doing something wrong, can't sit still. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. And when my boys run over and they punch me just to say hi, I go, ow, don't punch me, that hurts. But I'm actually doing something wrong myself because I'm telling them that they're doing something wrong. And logically, we should tell them not to hit because it hurts. But boys do that just to say hi. It's just in their nature. So they're like, I'm just being mean. They'll be told all the time that they're doing something wrong by women. And I just want you to notice that, because when you tell Tom, when Mary tells Tom to pick up his socks, on Tom's side of the table, he's always doing something wrong because what's natural to him is just wrong. And no matter if she hasn't complained or blamed, maybe, all the other times throughout his life, his mom telling him something wrong, in love and in care, that's still in him. So even though in your marriage you may not have complained or blamed, or even though you didn't do it many times, if you're like me, you did directly or indirectly also blame him. So he has been blamed filled, right? So he can't, like, when you ask him to then do something differently, it's like, oh, I'm doing something wrong again. I'm a failure. That's how he feels, right? That's how I assume from my knowledge and my wisdom that he feels. So his reactions when you ask him, in your mind, you just politely ask him to do some practicalities, but he's like, under attack. So the male's biggest fear is to be like disappear because he's afraid of just not existing anymore, that he loses all his selfness and becomes, nothing, so that there's nothing for you to love. And it's just about the socks, but he feels under attack, and he feels like he has to fight for his life. So if he's like my husband, he retrieves and goes into his shell, and then all hell breaks loose. But anyways, those are different scenarios of what goes on in the male and female brain. And to sum it up, the stories that you tell yourself, you can change them. You can change your attitude when you work on it. And that's really how to manage your mouth, is to manage your mind and manage the stories that you tell yourself. Start looking at the stories. And the way to change the stories is to ask the right questions, because that directs your attention. And so they don't just run automatically. And I'm not saying it's not true, this, that, and the other. Whatever story you tell yourself, Tom should pick up his socks, right? Tom should pick up his socks. And then that story becomes an excuse for bad behavior. Because the bad behavior is that you nag or you complain when you ask him to pick them up. But your excuse is, but he should pick them up. But it's still what I call bad behavior, because it doesn't create connection. And that's what you truly want, like love and connection. So all these stories we keep telling ourselves is a way to argument for ourselves that we can be bitchy, complaining, or blaming, right? But that doesn't get you what you want. So the key question always to ask is, what do you want? But that's a very deep question. When you go through all the layers, I want Tom to pick up his socks. Yeah, but what do you want? And then when we go deeper and deeper, why is that important? Why is that important? You want love and connection. But we bring ourselves in a different direction. So managing your mouth is the key. Looking at the stories you tell yourself and changing the ones that you can. Now, we can't just change the story that's been on with us since we were kids, like the unworthiness story. Like my story was that I'm not welcome, I'm not good enough. That's been with me my entire life. Of course, I don't just change that. I have my insecurities that get triggered from these basic limiting beliefs, which we all do. And I can't change that, but I can change my attitude, and I can change the story that I tell myself about my husband. And that's how you manage your mouth, is to change your stories, your attitudes, and change what truth you choose to look at and pick up and present. That's it for now. I'm going to leave you with this. It was a lot of information all at once, but these are some of the things that I teach and I coach and give lessons in. And less is more is a really, really important part of it, because just stop thinking out loud. It doesn't serve any purpose at all to think out loud. It's okay to do it. It's a habit, but just notice when you're doing it, and ask yourself this question when you're able to. Gee, I wonder how he feels. Because that will take the focus and the shift away. And because you don't know the answer, you might stop talking. Do whatever you can to stop talking. Ladies, I know it's the biggest challenge of all. Also, moms, it is so hard to stop saying all these things inside our mind. We have a beautiful, amazing mind. It just runs on a very high frequency. But love your mind. Reach out if you need any help. I'll share a link to the 7-day, it's now 7 days, used to be 5 days, communication transformation training, where this is the lesson number 2. Less is more, how to manage your mouth. Okay, have a great day out there.